Welcome back to my island. Today we are customizing the school in Happy Home Paradise. This is the first resort building that I've been able to customize, and I'm super excited to start unlocking new features and different aspects of the DLC. The first thing I did was change the outside of the building. I made it blue with the gold bell. On the inside, I received a quick little tutorial on how to change the room sizes, and I've been so looking forward to this for so long. You can see how excited I was by the circles that I was running. This tiny room was too small for a school, so I made it longer and a little bit wider. I played with the idea of making the room a 10 by 10 square, but I like that the length of the room really drew your attention to the front of the room as opposed to having too much extra space on the sides. I added windows and then I went immediately to change the flooring and the walls because I needed to get the vibe before I started anything else. I found this cute wooden but colorful tile that I decided to use, and I matched it with this plain yellow background. I did add this manga wall bookshelf, but I think it was a little bit too busy, so I do end up taking that away later. I switched out the dark teacher's desk for one that matched with the lighter vibe of the room, and then I started laying out all of the desks. I wanted enough desks to make the room feel like it was actually useful and not just a really tiny class size. So originally I wanted to go with a 3x3 row for 9 desks total. Once I put in all the desks, I realized that there wasn't a lot of space in the back for decorations and extra things in the room. So eventually I downsized to only 2 rows of desks for 6 desks total. I think this was a great decision and allowed me to play with some items in the back. I moved Lottie out of the way to play with the new customization feature of the lobby floor. I wanted something practical that would keep the space clean, so I ended up going with this white tile that would be easy to sweep up at the end of the day. And overall, this build was already looking really good. I gave the teacher a coffee mug because how would you make it through a whole day of lectures without a sweet little drink? And started looking at some of the furniture items that were associated with schools. At first I was thinking of doing these big lockers and doing alternating colors in the background so that the students would have a place for their items, but they were quite bulky and it would be really hard to have 6 lockers total without taking up the entire back wall space. I did really like the idea of having different designs on those lockers to make them more personalized, but I found these cubbies that fit the color scheme better, so I ended up going with these instead. Not only did the cubbies have enough spaces for the students, but there was actually space left over, which would be imperative for the teacher's storage of school supplies and any other related materials that they would need for education. I went through the furniture again and pulled out anything I liked, like this magazine rack, this decor cubby, a projector, a whiteboard, a skeleton, and a mop and bucket. Then I started to distribute those items around the room, making them fit where I thought they would go. I liked this projector because it was very modern, but it was just too big for the space, so I got rid of it. The teacher would have to teach on the whiteboard instead. The decorated cubby went right back in the middle in that open slot, and I decided at this point to remove that mango wall and replace it with a much smaller bookshelf, and I think that worked a lot better. I moved the bucket and the skeleton out of the way, and I would find a place for those later. I wanted them to be a part of the room, but not necessarily be in the way, because it would be something that the teacher might use. When I moved them up, I saw potential in that corner where the skeleton is sitting. I decided that this corner was going to be super cute for a little reading nook, so I brought the magazines over. I wanted it to be super cozy, so I introduced this plush yellow rug. Because that far side was heavily decorated, I moved everything over just to bring the balance a little bit into the room. I added a little cushion and a little book to the book nook, which completed that section. This ended up being my favorite part of the room. I then added this globe in the back and some papers for the desks. I wanted to start adding some school clutter just to make the space really feel like it was used, so I added some staples like Kleenexes and some additional items that you might find scattered across a classroom. I really like the idea of adding a chessboard that the students could use and play with during recess or lunch, but unfortunately the chessboard only came in a dark brown and a black colorway. I just thought it was too dark for this space, and I didn't want the eye to be drawn to the back of the classroom at this small chessboard, so I removed it. At this point, I noticed that the walls were a little bare, so I started adding some essentials like AC and clock in matching colors. I really liked this dried floral. I thought it would bring good luck to the students on their tests, so I hung that directly over the door. Did you guys know that there was a periodic table in the game? I was so excited when I found this. And then I brought a corkboard in to post any of the students' artwork or achievements. These bunting flags were so cute, so I brought them to the front of the room and I brought them right up to the top. I really like this detail because it didn't take up the full wall, but it definitely added to something, and if I was a student, I would totally daydream and stare at these bunting all day. I added the teacher's degree as well as a fun little art piece for the reading nook. And then I wanted to bring in a plant to introduce responsibility as well as some greenery into the space, and I put that directly under the AC so it got some movement. I added room basics like a light switch and a little shelf, and then we brought it back to the floor decorations. I added these floor mats under the cubbies for when the students were changing into their school shoes, and then I found an animal that I wanted to introduce as the class pet. This flower vase was so cute and really matched the wall, so I wanted to include it. Then I added a stack of books that needed to be sorted back into the library, as well as a little homework set. I didn't like the height of the books on the back shelf, so I moved them over to the reading cubby. Almost like everyone had a book they chose from the library and are actively reading it and stacked neatly against the wall. I rearranged a little bit of the items in the back and I brought the flower to the center of this cubby and it was so cute. Then I added a waste paper basket and a computer desk. I feel like I've gone a little retro with this build. It's more like a classroom that I would have grown up in as opposed to a classroom nowadays where technology is everywhere. So I really thought it was important to include a computer desk just so the students had access to new resources and of course playing computer games during their lunch. The fish tank was too dark, so I found this hamster that fit with the color scheme a little bit better. And with that finishing touch, I was feeling really confident with the room I just built. I took a picture of my favorite corner. The reading nook looks so cute. And then it was time to work on the teacher and the students that would go into the space. I had previously made Eloise a library on my island, so I thought she would be perfect to be the teacher, and I found this cute little box skirt in green that matched her ears and her nose, so that's what we went with. I kept the default uniform just because I thought it was so cute, and here's the school all together with the students inside. I love seeing them at the desks, and there's 2 open ones so that there's room to grow in the future. I think the room looks full and not too crowded, so it really brings a liveliness to the space. And then finally we went outside to take a group picture. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more Happy Home Paradise content. And thank you so much for 100 subscribers. Your support on these videos means the world to me. See you next time!